This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Today on the show, I have Alexander Elder, Dr. Alexander Elder. And Dr. Elder, for those that are in the trading world, they've seen his name, they've seen his books, international bestseller, trading for a living. I think just about everybody that's been involved in the trading space in the last 15 plus years has that book on their shelf. So, Dr. Elder, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
So I have to say, just as a little family history here, and I'm going to let you tell your story a little bit, but my last name is Covel.
Which means what do you call it? A smith. It's a Slavic name.
Okay, but it's shortened from Kovaleski, shortened from Kavialauskis.
Yeah.
So it's Lithuanian.
Yeah.
So we're kissing cousins, so to speak, with your Estonian background.
Well, not really, because I come Estonia and Lithuania, even though they're very close to each other, maybe 100 miles apart, come from completely different ethnic backgrounds. Estonians, I'm not an Estonian anyway, just to begin with, I'm a Russian Jew, but Estonians are related to Finns and to Hungarians, and Lithuanians is just a different branch. It's, when those tribes migrated from Asia, Lithuanians and Estonians came from different branches, but in any case, whatever. We're all Americans now, so that's what matters.
I will always take the wise history lesson. But why don't you go ahead, because you've got a really unique story. I mean, we'll get into some of the trading details and everything. But as a young man, you left that part of the world, and I think you've got an interesting story how you made it to America. I think that's probably one of the best things about your life is your story of leaving and what happened.
Well, there is a book that the Hoover Institution for the Study of War, Revolution, and Peace at Stanford University put out called the KGB Wanted List. I'm in that book twice. KGB tried to catch me and they tried to kill me. Obviously, they failed at that job as well as at many others. But when I was a kid, I was in college, university. I went early. I went to medical school at 16. But I got very political very early on, and I really hated the communist system. I hated it so much that by the time I was in my late teens, I would not go out of the house on national holidays because they would have red flags out, and it would just disgust me to walk under the flags. So I got involved in politics, and more so. And gradually, my friends started going to prisons. And there was no question in my mind that that's where I'm going to end up, because I tend to be pretty, whenever I get involved in something, I like to go far. And I realized I didn't love that country enough, which considered me a second-class citizen anyway. I didn't love that country enough to go to prison for it. And I got a job. Out of medical school, I got a job. Well, I did my residency in psychiatry, and then I got a job on a ship, of all places, as a ship's doctor. And one day when the ship was in Africa, I just put on my running shoes and got going with the rest of the crew in hot pursuit, because nobody was going to go on shore alone. So I really had to dash. Came to the U.S. I prepared for that thing. I was on the ship for about 2 months prior to this run, and we were in Africa, as I said, and every night I would go to the upper, when the sun came down, wasn't so hot, I would go to the upper deck and skip rope for 2 hours. So when the running time came, I was not the biggest or the strongest man on that ship, but I was the one in best shape. And so when it came to running, nobody caught me. And I broke away from my pursuers, caught a taxi, and had them take me to the U.S. Embassy. The rest is history. I'm here in New York. By the way, did you mention you're from Lithuania, yeah?
50%, yes. My father's side is 100%, and my mother's side at least brought some class to the operation.
You know who Simas Kudirka is?
No.
Well, you should. He is a very famous Lithuanian. He jumped from a Soviet ship onto a Coast Guard cutter. Get that, on a Coast Guard cutter, off of George's Bank here, right near the United States, and they handed him back. And he did several years in prison. And then it turned out his mother was born in New York, so they released him. He lives in the Bronx now. It was a very famous runaway case. I met him at a party once. It was quite a thing.
Yeah, the only interesting Lithuanian thing I can share right now is that Chicago Tribune just recently released some pictures, and my great uncle was one of the prosecutors of Al Capone back in the day. So these recently released pictures, and he was full on Lithuanian. And so it's quite interesting to see these old pictures. I'm looking at his face and I'm saying, is there any resemblance there? I'm thinking, oh, God, at least I've got a better hairline than he has right now. So, but well, listen, let me jump in also. So you've got this great psychiatry background, which I'm sure. Why don't I just let you run with that? Was that your entryway into trading? Did you use this great background in training, the psychiatry training? Was that how did that play early on as you were moving into trading?
I love psychiatry. I began reading Sigmund Freud when I was 15, 16 years old. I just absolutely, psychiatry made me into who I am. And as I said, I did my residency back in the old country. And when I came to New York, I got accepted into Albert Einstein program here in New York, and which was at the time the best residency in the city. No longer, but it was the best at the time. And I was doing my psych residency, and then I got a job, and I was working as a psychiatrist and developing a private practice and all that. And by the time I got into my mid-30s, I felt that I was about as good as people get. That it was no longer a huge adventure. It was just, grinding and polishing. And I was looking for something to get involved in. Meanwhile, I've been trading a little on the side. And I wouldn't even call it trading. I was gambling. I really didn't know anything. But trading fascinated me, and I got into it deeper and deeper, and I would have a $3,000 account, and I would bust it out and go back to work and put some money together again and open a $5,000 account until I finally figured out the game. Took many years. And I find that a high degree of formal education is a negative when it comes to trading. There was a guy in Chicago by the name of Brian Monison. He is in Market Wizards. Well, he is dead now. But Brian famously said, I have a PhD in mathematics, I specialized in cybernetics, but I was able to overcome these disadvantages and make money. A high degree of education is a hindrance, not help in trading. But in any case, I overcame this hindrance. I figured out the game. And people often ask, what's the similarity between, what does psychiatry and trading have in common? Well, they're both based in reality. You look at a chart and you're trying to see what you really want to see there. But the chart is doing what it's doing. Do you have the ability to brush away your fantasies and look at the chart with the eyes of a child? Up is up and down is down and sideways is sideways, without fantasizing too much, without saying, well, that's what it should do. So that's really the parallel between psychiatry and trading. And just to finish the topic, hopefully, I practice very little psychiatry now. 1 or 2 hours. It used to be 1 or 2 hours a month. That's about it. But just lately, I got this fascinating patient coming in. This guy is a super serious professional trader. Runs 8-figure account. And he came to me, he was depressed, he lost a lot of money because of poor risk control. So first we dealt with his depression, and now we're, dealing with his personality and also looking at markets together. And the guy is coming in and saying, I made $45,000 last week after our session. I made $78,000 last week. Therapy is paid for. I'm coming here forever. So that's my ongoing psychotherapy going on now, actually. I'm going to see the guy later today.
Well, how did you make the transition? You're doing, obviously you're working with patients and you start to get into trading. How did you make the transition to where, and I'm going to get into some of the things that you teach and what you help people with, but how did you make the transition to being this helper, this educator, this mentor to others? How did that transition start?
It actually it began it began when I was a kid, when I was before I was preteen. I had a much younger sister. Both parents were serious career people, so I had a sister who was 10 years younger than me. Completely different generation. So I was very caring about her, obviously, and showing her this and that and everything. So ever since then, I have this sort of typical older brother. I have this attitude towards teaching. That's how really. Plus, my parents had this idea that the pinnacle of creation, the top of creation, was somebody who was a professor, chairman of department. So of course I had to rebel against that, and I escaped from academic medicine. And lo and behold, I started my own school, the elder.com. So. It's funny how it goes from childhood to now. But in any case, the transition from mostly psychiatry to almost exclusively trading came gradually. People often ask me, well, how do I transit from my current profession to trading? Don't jump. Don't do it right away. Just start cutting hours in what you're doing in your primary thing and start adding hours to trading and basically follow the trend. As trading picks up, allocate more and more hours to it. And that's what I did.
Well, I know you've put forward stages of trader development. Why don't you outline for the audience how you see the stages of trader development?
Well, first of all, I want to say that there are stages. I feel sorry for some, poor idiot who reads an advertisement in a newspaper that says you can triple your money in a year working 15 minutes a day with no math. That's fantasy life. Somebody who is not looking for magic, somebody who is looking seriously to learn to trade and to become a trader, has to put time and energy into it. And I often say to people that learning to be a trader will probably take as long and cost as much as getting a college degree. It's a process. You have to read, you have to acquire a body of knowledge, you have to open a small learning account, like having a bicycle with training wheels. You have to practice on a small account, and then you have to start gradually adding equity to it. In terms of stages of development, sort of several road posts. I would say that stage one, when a person is completely green, coming to the markets and just trying to figure out which end is up, and if during the stage a person can lose no more than 10%, that's wonderful. They're ahead of the game. So at the first stage of trader development, when a person is completely green, losing 10% a year or less is a wonderful result.
Now, most people hear that and they're like, well, hold on. You're telling me a wonderful result is to only lose 10% a year.
Well, look, Michael, suppose you decide to become a dentist, right? Suppose you decide that, all your life, you really want to be a dentist.
My father's a dentist, by the way.
Okay, so you decide that it was a huge mistake to become a trader and a writer. You're going to become a dentist, and you go to dental school. Are you going to make money in your first year of dental school? Right? I mean, you can be brilliant, but you're not going to make any money as a dentist. It's going to cost you money. You're going to pay for education. You're going to read, to study, to spend time in the lab, making whatever they make in the first year of dental school. You're not going to make money as a dentist in the first year. So and if I was a recruiter for dental school, and I would say to you, Michael, come, join our school. You're going to be making money within months of joining us. You would know that I'm bullshitting you. That I have some hidden agenda. And it's the same way with trading. If you're going to learn how to trade, you should anticipate it will take you time. And in the beginning, when you as a beginning trader, go against somebody like Michael Covel, two of you are putting on a trade, well, make a wild guess. Who is going to walk away with money, right? So as a beginner, you should anticipate that you will lose some. Now, the idea is to lose as little as possible, to have a small account, to practice very tight money management, which is one of my favorite topics. But yeah, at the first stage of development as a trader, it would be strange not to lose money. As a matter of fact, one of the worst things that happened to me when I first began learning to trade, and I knew nothing, I made money on my first trade, and then I made money on my second trade. Well, after that, I got this delusional idea that trading was easy, and I had it figured out. Took me a good couple of years to work out from under that delusion.
So you got to be ready for that first year. You got to be willing to take your lumps. Maybe you get lucky, but you sure as heck can't count on that. So where do you progress after that stage?
Well, once you have, and remember, my strong suggestion at the first stage: trade with a small account. You certainly don't want to put all your savings into this new venture. Go easy in the beginning. This is a learning time. Stage 2, you want to outperform riskless assets. In other words, you can put your money into the bank and buy a CD and get maybe a couple of % there. Can you consistently beat that in your trading? It's surprisingly difficult for a beginner. It's surprisingly difficult. I mean, it's easy to do on a single trade, sure, but over a course of many trades, over the course of several quarters, it's a hard thing to do. And that's stage 2, outperforming riskless assets. But once you're doing that for a few quarters, you know that you're in good shape. You know that it's really starting to look like you know what you're doing. Now you can start adding capital to your account step by step, not too much, maybe 50%. If you're trading a $20,000 account, you go to 30, but no more than that. If 30 goes well, maybe you will go to 45. But you start adding capital every few months. And then, you just find out how good you are. Some people are very, very good. Some people are solid. Some people are so-so. But that's stage 3.
3 stages total in your mind?
Well, it's a very rough division. But yeah, I would say as a rough division, 3 stages. So first, don't lose more than 10% of your equity. Stage 2, outperform riskless assets. Stage 3, find out how good you really are.
Let me jump back to something real quick too, because I don't think I asked your specific influences. What were there books or there resources, things that helped to shape you early on before, for example, your first book was published?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge book reader. So, at the time I got into the field, which was in the late 70s, the body of trading literature was much smaller than it's now. It was really very, very small. Well, probably there were maybe several hundred books about trading. Now, I think Wiley, my publisher, publishes something like, maybe 100 books a year at least. And then there are other publishers as well. So, but back then, there were not too many books. And I have read them all. I have read everything there was to read. That's my background, my education, my background, my personality. I want to get complete background. I've read everything. I've read Charles Dow. I've read Robert Rea. I've read Schabacker. I even read Gann and Elliott before I figured out that was nonsense. But I've read it all. So that was one thing.
I remember buying those W.D. Gann books early on because I thought, well, that was what you were supposed to read. And I'd be reading this stuff and I go, this makes no sense.
I met W.D. Gann's son about 20 years ago. We had a club here in New York, in Society for Investigation of Recurrent Events, and I would say that 2/3 of our meetings were market-related. So we would have a speaker, we would have a dinner, speaker, and hang out a little. So this guy came from Boston. His name was Gann. So I'm listening to him. He is some kind of bank analyst, and I said to him, "Are you related to W?" He said, "Oh, that was my father." And the son was about 70. So I say, "Is it true that your father made these millions and he flew around in a private plane?" He says, "Nah. he was actually angry at his father because father could never afford a secretary. So this kid wanted to play ball, and instead he had to copy all these materials by hand for sale. And father could not make any money trading. He could when he was younger, but then he lost this ability. And so he was selling manuals. And at the time he died in retirement in Florida, told me the son, the value of his estate in the 1950s was $100,000. Now, he wasn't poor, but he certainly was not. He was very far from rich.
But the legend of his stuff still persists for a lot of new traders. They still come in that way and get suckered into it.
Yeah, well, the facts are well known, but people who sell GAN stuff, certainly, they have a different agenda.
Yeah. Well, let me jump into something. You mentioned it as one of your favorites, and you mentioned the topic of money management. And what I'd like is if you can. Because there's going to be some people listening that are very experienced. There's going to be some people that are brand new. But from your perspective, can you introduce this concept of money management, and then we could start to elaborate on it, but introduce what it is and why it's needed and pros and cons, and come at it from your perspective?
Money management is about as needed in trading as a life jacket on a boat. Now, you may be able to go out without a life jacket and come back safely and all that, but if you keep going out long enough, without a life jacket, trouble is there. The thing is, markets, I believe, are fundamentally not predictable. In other words, I can say, based on my analysis, I think there is a high possibility that this stock will go up, and there is in fact a high possibility that this stock wants to go up, but I cannot tell you with certainty that it wants to go up, because, as I said before, I think that thing is essentially unpredictable. There is just too much unknown in the markets. So suppose my analysis is right and the stock goes up, and I bet my account on it, or a quarter of my account on it. Then there is another stock and another stock, and you do 3 or 4 of those in a row, you feel like you can walk on water. And then you say, my analysis says this stock is going to go up, and but this time you're betting half of your account on it, and lo and behold, thing falls apart. And suddenly all your winnings from the past are destroyed, and as a matter of fact, your entire equity is negative, and you're in a deep hole, and how are you going to dig yourself from out of it? So before I talk about money management, I want to say there are two kinds of causality, dynamic and statistic. Dynamic causality is this. You take a pencil and push it on your desk, and whichever way you push it, that pencil is going to go. That's dynamic causality. You apply force, it goes in this direction. That's simple. But statistic causality is if I gave you a box and I will say, Michael, there are 20 tennis balls in it, and 12 of them are green and 8 of them are yellow. So what color do you want to bet on? Well, of course you'll say you're going to bet on green. But so you put your hand in, there is a possibility that you will pull 2, 3, 4, 5 yellow balls in a row, right? So if you're betting a large fraction of your account, by the time your system is correct, should bet on green. By the time this bad run comes to an end, your account is demolished. Okay? So that's why money management is needed, because stock market doesn't operate on dynamic causation, it operates on statistic causation. So that's the preamble.
I mean, that's a huge insight. I mean, for a lot of people never get past that, do they? I mean,
no, because look. I remember when I was trading and I would have learning to trade beginning. I would be running, run up my equity up, 50%, 80%, crash, 50, 80, I would have this wild equity swings, and I had no clue. It puzzled me to no end. Why is it happening? I mean, clearly I know something about markets. To take an account and run it up 50% in several months, clearly I have to know something about markets. How come I end up losing money? right? So I was beating my head against the wall, and there was no book, there was nothing to explain how it was happening. Then the strangest thing happened. I graduated, finished my residency, and I got a little more money, and I started putting more money into trading. And once my account got up to $60,000, I started making money. And again, I was puzzled. I haven't changed a thing. I was trading the same method, but once I went north of 60, it turns from a losing to a winning account. It was only years later I figured out why that happened. Because I continued to trade the same size. There was a certain size I was comfortable with. And so once the account grew bigger, that size fell into money management rules, which I didn't even know existed. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lesson a lot of people just never progress to. I mean, if you were to say what percentage from all your experience, and you've talked to so many different traders at so many different levels, what percentage of traders, and I'm thinking in my own mind of very bright doctors, attorneys that I know that have no idea about my world and the things that I put out there, but what percentage of traders and investors, if we were just to sit down with a blank slate, what percentage do you think actually are even aware of what money management is?
Look, I don't know, Michael. You may know better than I, because I tend to deal, people who read my books. I mean, I don't know who all of them are, but I run very few classes, and when people who come to my classes tend to be pretty high end.
Right.
So they, I would say, among high end people, maybe 9 out of 10 know what it is. I mean, I sharpen it for them, but it's certainly no news for them. But among people in general, it's very low. I should mention, I published a little ebook. That's my new exciting thing, electronic publishing, moving into the 21st century. I published this little ebook. It's on Amazon. It's called "To Trade or Not to Trade." There was this guy in England, Shakespeare, stole my title. To Trade or Not to Trade, Beginner's Guide. $8 on Amazon. And I begin the book by saying, listen, you're coming into an extremely exciting area that I love, which also happens to be highly dangerous. So let me begin by saying in advance, here are personality traits that will make you a loser. So if you have those traits, make this $8 the last expense ever in the stock market. Just turn around and leave before you do any more damage. Now, if you have these personality traits, which are suitable for trading, please continue to read. But remember, we're going to talk about risk management. We're going to talk about record keeping and all this boring, quote unquote, boring stuff that separates winners from losers. So I actually wrote an ebook for beginners to remedy the problem that you're talking about.
Gotcha. Well, it's funny you mentioned it. That's one of the things on my list too. Is I need to migrate to some of this ebook. You got a head start on me. I'm still in the old school printing. It seems like with all these publishers. Let me jump to something slightly different. I know there's probably unless you want to add a little bit more on the money management.
Well, there are rules of money. There's a 2% rule and a 6% rule. They're outlined in all of my books. Please go ahead.
Gotcha. Yes, definitely. Make sure you go buy Dr. Elder's books. We have to support the lifestyles that we have to lead, whatever those are. I'm not sure exactly.
I don't know. I never taken any, those, I must say, the royalties for the books put my children through college and graduate schools. I haven't taken any of that money out. Now I'm supporting the education of my niece and nephew. But I don't know. I'm trading that account. So I'm just, any royalties come in and throw them into trading account, having fun. Go ahead.
Let me, I know you're big on keeping records, diaries. Talk about the notion of writing things down and what's behind it and why it's so important.
Years ago, when I was actively practicing psychiatry, a patient would come in, and part of history taking, I would ask them about their drinking. And, every once in a while you run into somebody who you suspect is an alcoholic. So I would say so to the patient. And some would accept and many would deny. Well, if a guy denied that he was an alcoholic, I never argued. I would say, look, I want you to continue drinking for the next week exactly how you drink. Don't change a thing. But every time you take a drink, I want you to write down what you drank and how much. Just come back with a record and we'll take a look at it. And no alcoholic ever could come back with a complete record. They would be just terrified looking at the thing. Why? Because people who are engaged in some kind of impulsive, stupid, self-destructing behavior, the last thing they want to do is look in the mirror. Because creating records creates a mirror of your actions. Now, moving from psychiatric office to trading, most traders just run forward and keep making the same mistakes months after months and year after year. And there is a Russian expression. It's called, don't step on the same rake twice. A guy steps on a rake in the garden, it stands up and hits him in the forehead. It can happen to anybody. But don't step on the same rake twice. So keeping records basically creates a breaker mechanism in unproductive, bad, unuseful behavior. Keeping records makes you alert to yourself. When you trade, you have several components of your trading. Obviously, you have your computer, you have your database, you have internet knowledge that you have acquired, all these wonderful things. But also your personality, your moods, your fears, your likes and dislikes, all of that is very much a part of trading. And I think it's important to pay attention to yourself and to your decision-making process. So that's why I keep saying to traders, the single most important factor in your success or lack of such is the quality of your records. You've got to keep a diary of your trades. I used to keep it on paper. I used to keep it on a variety of computer forms. We now have an absolutely fantastic record-keeping system. I just love it. I live in the system. Together with my partner and friend, Kerry Lavorne, we run this website, spiketrade.com. And as a part of that website, we now have a trade journal. And that, I think, is just the best way to keep records. I keep all my trade records at spiketrade.com now. So, and I find that ever since I began keeping good records some years ago, my trading, I could see an improvement in my trading. And then every couple of months, you have a free evening, just go back and review old trades. Because we all make our trading decisions at the right edge of the chart. Well, how does this trade look when it migrates to the middle of the chart? I mean, do you think I remember what I traded in May of this year or in June of this year? I remember one or two spectacular trades, but 99% of what I did, I have no recall. However, sometime this weekend, I'm going to sit down, pull out my diary, and review my trades from May and June. And it's going to be a fantastic educational experience, like a class for one.
Let me jump into something fairly basic, but I think it's something that a lot of perhaps even experienced traders might not initially have down as they move through their trader development, which is the notion of exiting longs and shorting weakness. So the idea of having that exit strategy on the upside, but then being comfortable to not just hold on the downside, but actually turn around and go the other way. I know you've actually put some full-length books out there on this subject.
Yeah, I have a book out called The New Sell and Sell Short, and actually, of all my books, that was probably the least popular, because even though I published, I was having dinner with my publisher. It was 2007, December of 2000, no, end of 2000. In any case, 2007. And he was fishing for a project, and I said, well, there is no book on selling and selling short. He says, who do you think would write? I said, well, I guess I could. So I wrote this book. It came out in May of 2008. And, the bear market was really picking up speed then. And you would think the book would become a bestseller. No such thing. No such thing. People really don't like selling and selling short. I love shorting. I came from commodities. My initial experience was trading commodities. So, of course, in commodities, everybody sells short. But you have to do the same thing in stocks. It's the market is a two-way street. It goes up and it goes down. As a matter of fact, it goes down about twice as fast as it goes up. And you can make money trading both ways. People are afraid of shorting. Usually the first thing they say is, oh, what happens if you buy the worst thing, that your stock goes down to zero, and if you sell short and it goes up against you, you can be wiped out. So, well, if you get wiped out by a short stock, by a short trade, you're an idiot, and you deserve to be wiped out. It means that you're trading without a stop. Of course, you have to run at some point. You have to set a stop. So shorting is completely doable. I sort of make a joke out of it, and I say, contrary to what your mother may have told you, shorting can be very pleasant, and just use protection when you do it. Don't listen to your mother. Go ahead, do it, but use protection, and you can be very well. When I teach classes, I always tell people, look, you've got to sell short. Now, find a stock that you hate. Find a stock that if you buy it, it's going to go down. Well, now go ahead and sell short. But don't short a lot. Sell short, 100 shares, 50 shares, 20 shares, whatever. Small quantity, but just get comfortable with the concept of shorting. As always, I say, learn on small side. But you have to learn how to sell short. And maybe you will say, look, I really don't like shorting. I prefer buying long. Well, that's fine. But you have to make that decision after you have shorted. So you make that decision on the basis of your experience and not out of fear.
As I listen to you, Alex, and I hope this doesn't sound too off the rails, but as you're talking about protection, and I'm thinking back, and I'm going to be very discreet as I describe this, but the way that I actually learned what the word "da" meant in Russian, I'll just leave it to people's imagination how I figured that out with a very, very attractive Russian woman, and I had no earthly idea I had no idea what that word meant before that moment. So.
Yeah, a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Anyways, completely off the rails there. And let me ask something though, because I think one of the really interesting things that you do is with your work is travel, and I'm very envious because I've done a lot of travel, a lot of speaking abroad, but I'm very envious because you are really truly out there reaching and touching groups of traders at frankly a lot of distant outposts, so to speak. And I'm sure your growing up has helped you to know different parts of the world better than perhaps some of us Americans that are a little too Americanized. But talk about the contrast, perhaps, if any, between some of the places that you've been to travel to teach, Eastern European countries, etc., compared to, let's say, U.S. students. Is there a difference really, or is it just everybody really wants to learn?
No, there are definitely differences. Similarities, of course, mostly, but differences as well. First of all, I want to say that technical analysis is a study of crowd psychology. It's actually, I call it applied social psychology, practicing social psychology for profit. Crowds behave quite similarly in all countries. If you look at chart patterns in New York, in Moscow, in Sydney, in Singapore, they look remarkably similar. And if I removed identifying codes and prices, I doubt you would be able to say which is from which country. As a matter of fact, I would bet that you would not be able to say which is from which country because they're so similar. Crowds behave in very similar ways. And this is why technical analysis is a global language and it works around the globe. Now, in terms of individual traders, people are quite different. I find that in America, traders tend to be older, more educated. Sort of an average trader, I remember seeing the numbers, is a 50-year-old college-educated male, married, often a business owner. So it's an older group of people. Whenever I go to Eastern Europe, I was in Kiev last year. It strikes me how amazingly young people in the group, people in the classroom are. I mean, it's full of 20-somethings. Now, to see somebody who is 50 or 60 in Eastern Europe, it's amazing. So, gee, of course, people age there a lot sooner also, but lots of young people and very eager and very inventive and very, very sharp. In Asia, I think more women are trading than in this country. Plus, I think in Asia there is a much stronger gambling component than either in the U.S. or in Europe. So there are certain kind of personal colors, different psychological coloring. But it's looking at individual traders. But when you look at the charts which are created by crowds, there's not much of a difference.
I am always amazed or not amazed, but I always kind of pause before I answer, because it always strikes me odd when a new trader or someone reaches out to me and they want to know if this style of trading is for them, for their particular, someone's writing from Indonesia or Singapore or something, and it always kind of just strikes me as to why in their own mind they might be thinking that their country is so terribly unique in terms of the markets, when as you just correctly said, the markets are just people coming together and buying and selling. It's crowd psychology. It's the same everywhere.
It is. Yeah. It is. But in terms of trading in worldwide markets, I always advise people to try and trade where they live, because the question I ask them is, where do you think profits are coming from? Strangely enough, many people don't think about it, and then they realize that the only way, the only place from which profits will come are the pockets of other traders. Well, other traders are just as smart as they are, and they have just as good computers, and they're just as eager for the money. So it's really a tough fight to get money out of somebody else's pockets while paying commissions and suffering slippage. So I say it's bad. People ask me, well, do you trade in Australia? Do you trade in Russia? I say, look, it's hard enough to trade when I am awake. I don't want people picking my pockets while I'm asleep. If you go to a market in a different time zone, you can't really watch them intraday, and I think it's not a good thing.
One of the, I saw a great, I'm pretty sure this is a line of yours. If it's not, you can just say, Mike, well, you didn't do your homework very well. But you said, I think financial markets are like manic depressive patients.
Yeah.
That's you,
that's
right?
Me. That's me.
What do you?
That'll be 5 cents for professional opinion.
So what? I know you have a little explanation that goes with that, but what does that mean to the person that hears that? What is it?
There was a guy, what I mean, markets go up and markets go down. But let me be a little more specific. There was a guy who died just maybe a year or two ago, Benoit Mandelbrot. He was a mathematician who actually ended up winning a Nobel Prize. And many years ago, the Egyptian government hired him to study cotton prices, because cotton is the major export of Egypt, and obviously, they want to sell their cotton high. So this one of the great mathematicians of the world was hired by the government. He studied cotton prices, and he came up with this conclusion. Hold on to your seat. Prices oscillate above and below value. Prices oscillate above and below value. And that's one of very few things that are facts about the markets. Not a rule of thumb, not in my experience, not it seems to me, a mathematical fact that prices oscillate above and below value. Now, we can define value. Of course, a fundamental analyst has his ways of defining value. Me, as a technician, I use a pair of moving averages, and I believe that value lives in the zone between those averages. And now the market goes below value, and that's where people start panicking and selling, and I'm looking to buy. And when prices return to value, I take profits. Now prices get really happy and they start rising above value, and people get happy and they start buying. Well, I'm looking for a shorting opportunity. I'm looking to sell short above value. So I use envelopes, of course, to help identify value, plus a whole bunch of indicators. But that's the manic depressive behavior to me. There is a joke. They say a neurotic is a person who builds castles in the clouds. A psychotic lives in those castles, and the psychiatrist is the fellow who collects rent. So I want to profit from crazy behavior. I don't want to be a part of it, which most people are.
So Alex, let's assume someone has trained with you. They've been through education with you. They've come out on the other side. They have a great understanding. They get it. Aren't there a certain number of people, though, that self-sabotage themselves, even when they've come out on the other side of being awake, so to speak?
Sure. Oh, look, there are people, well, first of all, talking about people who train with me, the number is very small because all I do is I run traders camps where we accept 25 people and we run them either once or twice a year. So, you're not talking about a huge number. It's the numbers of people I quote unquote trained is very small. I have given lots of public classes where, class goes for a day, but hey, you might not be able to learn to ride a bicycle in a day, much less to trade. Just orientation, basically, give you some do's and don'ts. But there are people who will not succeed, no matter who will never succeed. And actually, as I mentioned earlier today, when I wrote that book, To Trade or Not to Trade, that ebook on Amazon, it actually begins by saying, listen, some people will never succeed. If you have, for example, if you have an addiction problem, you have any kind of substance problem, forget about trading. You will never make money if you're an addict. I don't use this language, a little softer. If you're obsessional, if losing 10 cents on the street upsets you and you ruminate about it, you cannot trade. Some other trades as well. So look, not everybody can trade. Just like not everybody can do anything. I mean, it's a big world.
Yeah. Listen, I know can't keep you all day. We could probably talk for hours and hours. I want to as I wrap up though, I want to kind of let you take the floor a little bit. Not that you haven't already done that, but all these years later. So, this long process, this journey from Estonia, going through Africa, getting to New York, building yourself a life success. What do you learn today? What strikes you new? What makes you kind of go, aha? What are those new things that make you exciting today?
Well, last time I checked, we go through this vale of tears only once. So you might as well enjoy the journey. And the thing that I am most excited these days, it's really a fantastic intellectual as well as emotional adventure, is this group that I run together with my friend and business partner, Kerry Lavorne, spiketrade.com. That's the exciting part. Nobody in the world does it. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Maybe a pale shadow somewhere. But what we do, what we do is this. We have a group of 18 professional and semi-professional traders. And they're obligated to submit a pick of what they think is going to be their favorite, best trade for the week ahead. It can be long, it can be short, and we only do American stocks at this point, stocks and ETFs. And at the end of the week, so you can enter anytime on or after Monday's close, and you have to exit anytime on or before. So you have to enter on or before, on or after Monday's open, and be out before the end of the day on Friday. And so every week we have winners and losers, and at the end of the quarter we accumulate all the results, and winners get paid and they get diplomas. And to me, and then we have members who participate on a voluntary basis. So we have elite people who are always up, and then members participate on a voluntary basis. And it's a great pleasure to see how people get it, how people learn, how people get with the program and look at each other, ask each other questions and advance. One of the typical emails I get in Spike Trade, a guy will write to me and say, I'm now winning prizes in Spike Trade, writes some low-level member, but I cannot make money in my own account. And whenever I see that, I say to him, you're in a good place, because that's the standard operating procedure. People come in lost, they figure out the game in Spike Trade, and then in a few months, it translates into their own trading. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Don't change a thing. And sure enough, in a few months, We're right now coming to the end of the quarter. September is the last month of third quarter. And just earlier today, Kerry and I were going back and forth. We have one man who had a very bad quarter. Well, his wife had cancer, and he just completely lost focus on trading. And unfortunately, he hit some bad numbers, so he will have to separate from spike trade. But we have a guy in Nevada who is just doing fabulously, and so we will be promoting him to the spiker. And that to me is hugely exciting. I mean, I'm trading. I'm usually piggybacking at least one or two of Spiker's picks. But also, in addition to just making money from piggybacking those wonderful trades, I enjoy dealing with these people, answering their questions, and seeing them grow. It's just wow! It's exciting.
Okay, I have one more quick question. As you live in that fine New York City, what's your favorite thing to do in New York City? Favorite place to eat? Let's just really concrete. Favorite place to eat in New York City?
Well, I would say there is a Michelin rated sushi restaurant called Jewel Bako. Jewel, like a jewel, and Bako. So I like going there for sushi once in a while. That's probably my favorite place.
Well,
but my partner in Spike Trade, Kerry, he, through hanging out with me, developed a serious sushi addiction. He is based in Alabama, but he developed a sushi addiction. So he comes to New York and finds the best restaurants, and then I follow him. I
tell you, well, we've got a lot in common then with the sushi, because I think if I could eat sushi every day, I'd probably be happy.
Well, there's also a wonderful restaurant around the corner from the apartment, a few blocks from the apartment, called East. And they have kaiten sushi, which is running sushi, where you sit next to this conveyor belt, and this wonderful river of sushi is coming to you. 2 portions, like 2 little pieces per plate, and each plate is a different color, different price. And you just sit there, this river of sushi is flowing at you, and you just take whatever appeals to you and eat it. And come to New York. I'll show it.
Absolutely. We'll definitely take you up on that. Well, listen, Alex, it was great speaking with you today. For people out there, it's pretty easy to find you, but elder.com, elder.com. And that's going
or spiketrade.com.
Okay, and that's going to take you to everything you're up to. Books, you name it, etc.
And elder.com is probably best because it will also link to Spike Trade. But they will see the books. They can. Actually, this morning I was writing this newsletter. Once a month I write this newsletter where I put my ramblings on paper. So we'll be sending a newsletter, and it's free. We'll be sending the newsletter out tomorrow or Friday. So they can get on the list and basically stay in touch. And we're very careful about people's names. I run this little business the way I run medical office. Very decently.
Well, and you got to support the cause, buy the books. We've got to eat that sushi. So the sushi's not free. But listen, Alex, it was good talking. Hopefully we could talk again in the next 6 months or a year or so. It'd be great.
Thank you. Very pleasant.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government, and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.